Tips of the Scale, episode 17.
Welcome to tipsofthescale.com, your home for weight loss motivation. Tune in every week for weight loss success stories from around the world and for expert tips on diet and exercise. And now, your host, Sam Lamelli.
Hey there, Scale Warriors, and thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Tips of the Scale, your home for weight loss motivation. Are you on our email list? If not, you are missing out on your chance to be entered in some fun contests that are coming your way. Do you want to miss out? I didn't think so. Go to tipsofthescale.com/subscribe to sign up now. And if you enjoy this free podcast, please show your support by going to tipsofthescale.com and clicking the subscribe in iTunes button at the top of our page. This will send you over to iTunes where you can leave a hopefully 5-star rating and a glowing review. Okay, Scale Warriors, let's get started. I am thrilled to introduce my guest today, Ms. Jen Tallman from New York City. Jen, how are you?
I'm good. How are you today?
I'm fantastic. Thank you for asking. Now, listeners, Jen has a really awesome story, and I'm really thrilled that she's going to share this with us today. Her journey starts back at 265 pounds. It's a very, very cool story. But before we go there, Jen, would you go ahead and take a minute and tell us about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much for having me. Like you said, my name is Jen. I am 25 years old, living in New York City. I'm originally from Binghamton, New York, which is in upstate New York, the real upstate, not just above New York City, because a lot of people get confused with that. There is really not a whole lot to do there. A little bit of a depressing town, and just a little bit of a background on it. It's actually been rated the number 2 most overweight city in the USA, wow. With the obesity rate at 37.6%. So there's very few days of sunshine there, and I do think that that's a huge contributor, but of course that's really just another excuse. So I moved to New York City about 2.5 years ago. Love every second of it. It has been a huge adjustment because every minute here we're going. And a lot of stress does come from that, but I love every second of living here.
Right on. It sounds like it's an interesting place to live. I had no idea that was so high on the obese cities list. That's really interesting. I want to dive into a little bit more about kind of your environment and how that played into your journey here in a little bit. But before we do, as you know, we like to start off Tips of the Scale with a motivational quote to get the inspirational juices flowing and get everybody ready for the story you're about to share with us. So, Jen, what do you have for us today?
My favorite motivational quote comes from my fitness idol, Jillian Michaels. Mm-hmm. I've done a lot of her workout DVDs, and the one that's my favorite is called Ripped in 30. And in one of the levels, one of the things that she says is transformation is not a future event, it's a present activity. And that really resonates with me so much because I think pretty much everybody is familiar with procrastinating and, telling yourself you're going to do this tomorrow and, restart on Monday. And so I really keep that in mind every time I feel like giving up.
That is a really good one. And I see exactly what you mean. Now, for you personally, how has that played into how you've approached your weight loss? My
attempts at weight loss before I was successful, I constantly was the person saying, I'm going to start on Monday, after this cheeseburger, etc. And I never really thought about how every single choice that you make during the day affects, not just your weight or your weight loss goals, but it affects every other aspect of your life and, your mental health, your physical health. So, once I really started getting into losing weight when, the motivation would kind of go down, I would remind myself of that this choice, me choosing this cheeseburger over a salad is not going to get me to my ultimate goal any faster. It's actually going to set me back.
Yeah, that's a really important thing to remember when you're facing the temptations every day, and especially on the topic of motivation. And I'm excited to jump into that here in a minute. Let's step back to the beginning of your journey. Let's go back to where it all started. When did the weight gain begin for you, and what do you think contributed to it?
Sure. I've basically always been heavier than my friends, but not super significantly until high school. In about 11th grade, where we started to, kind of drink and get into partying, I really see now that alcohol was a huge trigger for, the overindulging. It wasn't so much that I was a big drinker. I actually hated it. But, to fit in and everything, we would drink. And then, of course, you want to go to Denny's after, get greasy, salty food. And because I wasn't active, I didn't participate in sports. I didn't exercise. I was really the only one of my friends who gained weight. And it kind of seems like it happened really fast. And especially during senior year, being excited. We were constantly celebrating, getting ready to leave high school is when I definitely put on probably 60 or 70 pounds in those last 2 years of high school.
Wow. For a lot of people, that's the time where your habits are forming for life.
Right.
It sounds like now you're moving in the wrong direction. So, what kind of stuff did you try to address it then that maybe didn't work?
I tried, of course, Slim Fast a few times, which lasted about 2 or 3 days. And then I did try Weight Watchers twice, and I was successful. It was the last 2 summers of my high school, actually. I was successful both times. I lost about 20 pounds, which, put me definitely at a healthier range.
Right.
And I loved Weight Watchers. I loved that I could, basically eat whatever I wanted as long as I was tracking my points and staying within the points. The meetings, I think it's a fantastic way to begin because you're in a room full of people who are struggling with the same thing as you, and then you're seeing those who have been successful, and it does bring you hope. But basically, as soon as my school year started again, I didn't have time to go to the meetings, and, I gained the weight right back within a few weeks.
Yeah, the back and forth yo-yo cycle for a lot of people is all too familiar.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how did your weight at the time and throughout these years affect your life? I mean, what kind of emotional and physical difficulties or challenges did you run into during that period?
Emotionally, it's such a sad place to be in. I'm so lucky and so blessed to say that I didn't face a ton of ridicule from being overweight. I grew up in a small town. Everybody was very close to each other. Definitely, I had comments made, in times of anger. Everyone gets picked on at some point, but the toll that it took on me emotionally was I really feel like I kind of took on this role of, being the funny one, the silly one, the one that would, get in trouble for, yelling out in the middle of class just to make other people laugh, to kind of, cover up how bad I felt about myself. Guys would like to hang out with me, but it always had to be a secret. Never wanted me to make me their girlfriend, and I always knew why, and it was really hurtful, but I definitely suffocated those feelings, and of course in turn ate those feelings in private. And I had a lot of friends. We would go to parties and stuff, but I felt so uncomfortable in my skin when I would cry myself to sleep, and I felt so lost, and I really had no confidence that I would ever get to be the person that I wanted to be.
That is such a tough place to be and so young, facing those feelings about yourself and having to, as you said, eat your feelings. That's a real low for a lot of people. Now, Clearly there came a point when this turned around for you. Now, what was the spark? What was the thing that made you finally say, okay, enough is enough, and today is the day I turn it around?
A few years after high school, pretty much right when I graduated high school, I got a job being a manager for a tanning salon, and I put my heart and soul into it. I absolutely loved it. I actually stopped taking college classes so that I could work, basically every single day. I had a lot of long hours, and there was a lot of downtime, so I was eating nothing but fast food and delivery. So in the following years after high school, I went on to gain another 40 or 50 pounds. And in 2009, at the beginning of 2009, the company wasn't doing so good, and they very spontaneously let a bunch of us go. Oh. And it was so crushing for me. I've never felt that loss in my entire life. I had stopped going to college thinking that this was going to be like my career, and I started to gain more weight, and I started to experience, crippling anxiety to the point of where I could not get out of bed.
Wow.
I was extremely fearful of death, and it took me a while to realize it, but I was achy and sore, and my hands and feet were swollen. My heart was racing constantly, and kind of Googling my symptoms because I really didn't want to go to my doctor and admit that I was experiencing these things. I realized that I had symptoms of high blood pressure and being a pre-diabetic. In my whole life, I had never had a doctor tell me that I was in danger. They would just be like, oh, you would be better off if you lost a little bit of weight, but you're young, it'll come off. They were never serious about it being a health problem. So as soon as I realized that my, horrible eating habits were affecting my health, that was my moment, because there's nothing scarier than feeling out of control of your health.
Oh, yeah. Completely understand. I find it interesting that you said you felt like you didn't want to go to a doctor and explain what you were feeling. Now, let's dive into that a little bit more. Like, what was holding you back from going? Was it that you kind of knew what you were going to hear, or you didn't want to face how serious this was? Like, what held you back from talking to your doctor about this earlier in the process?
Yeah, it was definitely a mixture of I didn't really talk about it with anybody. I had been with my boyfriend for a few years and we were living together, and he knew that I was dealing with this, awful anxiety. But as far as he knew, and as far as I told him, it was just because I was so upset about having lost my job. And obviously everyone could see that I was overweight, but your friends don't tell you that. Your family, has, it's an awful position to be put in, to want to confront your daughter or your girlfriend or your best friend and tell them, like, your weight is scaring me. I mean, especially being a woman, we take that immediately to be something so hurtful and so, there's just no good way to do it. So I didn't really talk to anybody about it. And what you said, I pretty much knew where I was headed, and I didn't even want to face that. I didn't want my doctor to tell me, maybe it was more serious than I had thought, or maybe they weren't going to be as concerned about it, and then it was going to prolong me doing something about it even more.
Yeah. It's a good thing that you finally did. And the reason I wanted to touch into that a little bit more was I know that you are not alone in that. I've heard this before where you kind of have that voice in the back of your head that knows exactly what they're going to tell you and what they're going to say you need to do. And it's such almost a mental block to admit that you need to go and have this conversation and ask for the help and talk to a professional.
Right.
I know there's someone listening to this right now who can relate to what you were feeling at the time. And so that person hears this from you. Looking back now, do you wish you had gone and spoken to a doctor sooner?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, not only was the quality of my life, being affected emotionally, but definitely physically. I mean, climbing up the stairs to my apartment, my 80-year-old grandma at the time could, I was breathing the way she was breathing, and she had emphysema. So it was, just especially being 21 at the time. But really, regardless of your age, I mean, there's no reason for anybody to have their quality of life affected. I think that along with mental health, weight loss, and the implications that come along with it are almost considered, a lot of people feel embarrassed by it, and I would just love to be the person that tells you, don't be embarrassed by it. You can do something about it. A year from now, you can be in amazing shape and, great health, and you just have to take that first step, whether it's confiding in a parent or your significant other or a best friend, or just going to the doctor and making the appointment and telling them, I need your help. Somebody will be there for you. You don't have to be embarrassed, and you have to take your health into your own hands.
Yeah, it's so important to take that first step, and for so many people, it was for myself too. For so many people, that first step is the scariest.
Definitely.
The positive out of it though is that it builds up. So after you take that first one, you take the second one. It gets easier and easier.
Absolutely.
So in terms of how you started, what did day one look like for you? It sounds like you got in touch with a professional, but what did it look like to, get up the morning that this all began and start making healthier decisions? What was day one like for you?
Day one was, I really wholeheartedly did not believe in myself that I could change my eating habits. I mean, they were so ingrained into me, and they were such a clutch, like an emotional clutch to me, that I just didn't think that there was anything that I could do about it. So I figured, I'm going to start exercising, and I know that that's going to at least, that's going to improve something, and then hopefully I'll be able to, to change my eating habits in the future. So I started with a walk just a few times around my block, a couple of times a week, and this was in the summer of 2009. So I would also go to our local pool and swim a few laps with one of my best friends. And that's pretty much where it started. I would also kind of swap in some fruits and vegetables instead of, the potato chips that I was eating every day. And I was still going to, McDonald's and the drive-thrus, but I was taking off, the buns of the hamburger or the chicken sandwich that I was eating. I started so incredibly slow with just those little tiny changes.
This wasn't like a cold turkey kind of thing where from one day to the next you uprooted your entire life and changed everything, which for a lot of people is really hard to do and really hard to stick with.
Right.
So you found a way to transition slowly so that it would last. So that's very cool. I like that even if you couldn't let go of the fast food on day one, you were making it just a tad less evil or a tad less bad for you by taking the bun off and making small changes like that on your way to, the lifestyle that you were building toward. Very cool. That's some really good advice in there. I
think the biggest thing for me here that was different about the other times that I had tried to lose weight was that I knew that it's such an overused phrase, but it's, there's really nothing else that captivates what this has to be for you in order for it to work, but it absolutely has got to be a lifestyle change.
Yeah.
So I knew that, I couldn't go from eating fast food 4 times a day to 0 times a day without relapsing a week later. So that's really where it came in with like, okay, I can still eat this. I'm just going to eat a little bit less of it. And I don't believe in going cold turkey with anything. I just don't have the willpower to do that. So doing something like this, just making those small changes and realizing that this has to be a lifestyle change, I think is the key to making it work and to really stick around.
Yeah, I think a lot of people can relate to that. And if you know yourself well enough where you know that cold turkey doesn't work for you and you know that you need that kind of a smoother transition, then you took the exact right approach, Jen. Very cool. Now in this period where you were starting to make these changes to your life, did you tell anyone around you that you were trying to lose weight? What kind of reactions did you get?
Yes, I'm a very open person as it is, so, and I know that not everyone is. So I know that sometimes it can be, it's, like I said, a lot of people think that it's embarrassing. If you don't want to tell anybody at first, of course, that's totally up to you. But I believe so much in the power of other people supporting you and helping you. That's why I really love the basis of Weight Watchers, going to the meetings and being surrounded by people that support you. Mm-hmm. I told my best friend, Brenda, and who's been, in amazing shape her whole life and, always was there for me to, to try to get me to, to exercise with her and stuff. And my boyfriend, John, who has been my number one biggest support in, my entire transformation. So telling those two, just, to let them know, like, please don't ask me if I want to go out for pizza. Please, if I am feeling lazy, give me that little kick, in the butt to go out and go for a walk. And, the people that love you want to be there for you, and they want to be an important part of your journey.
Yeah, it's so important to get the people around you on board with your plans. Very cool. It sounds like you went to those that you trusted most and asked them to help you beat yourself in a way, right? To help you fight your own habits in a way. And anyone who loves you, will happily, in most cases, be on board with help make some changes like that. So very cool that you had that support system in place. It's so important. And I stay on that for a second because I know that for a lot of people out there that is something they're lacking. And part of the reason that they haven't been successful is, just like you said, Jen, Weight Watchers was helpful for you and successful in the short term because of the groups and the meetings and kind of the social aspect and the accountability of it. So there's a lot to be said for having a support system in place. It's really important. Definitely.
Going off of that for a second, I can't imagine, not having a support system, but addressing that because I know that there are some people out there who don't. Mm-hmm. One of the things that, helped me in addition to the support system that I did have was reading. There are thousands of healthy living blogs out there. I myself have one, and, a lot of them started with being heavy. Some of them had a lot of weight to lose, some of them, just a little, but at the end of the day, it's a struggle for all of us. And when you're reading these blogs and you're realizing that there's so many other people out there in the world that are going through what you're going through and, they're open about it, they're writing about it, let that be your support system. Whether or not you comment on their blogs or not, just reading them and realizing that they're going through the exact same thing, that you've gone through, let them be your support system. I really think that was another thing that helped me so much, was realizing that I wasn't in it alone.
Yeah, absolutely. So important. There are so many people out there who are in the same boat. You'd be surprised how many people can relate and when you open up about it.
Right.
So throughout this process, you were starting to do research and read blogs and look into more of the ways that you could turn your lifestyle around to a healthy path. Now, what were some of the things that you didn't know about diet and exercise when you started this that you know now?
Well, after it took me just about a little bit over a year to lose officially 100 pounds. And when I started about halfway into my weight loss, I hit a plateau, and that's when I decided to start using a smartphone app to track my calories and my workouts. And I loved it. Again, it was a lot like Weight Watchers, but this time I was looking at real calories, and that just helped me a little bit better than the points did. But I never envisioned myself being on the opposite end of the weight struggle, which was being quite a bit underweight. And I got a little bit, carried away with it. I was in the mindset for over a year of lose. And once I got to where my body, was very healthy, which was, right around 150, 155, I didn't realize that you needed to then kind of recalculate where you are and start to eat a little bit more to maintain. So for about a year and a half, I struggled really badly with continuing to eat the amount that I was eating when I was losing weight. And I dipped, about 25 pounds down from where I am now, and it was a very unhealthy place for my body to be at. So it was just another struggle with body weight issues and, not feeling like I was good enough, to be where I was. And so a big thing that I learned is that weight loss is it's a learning experience, and you learn things all the time, because I would have never realized that at some point I needed to start eating more for my activity level, to maintain. So where I'm at now is back to, the healthy range of 155. And it's pretty surprising that, the amount of food, of healthy food that you can eat when you are active. And I think that, if people could see that, people that have a lot of weight to lose, once you get, to a really healthy weight range, you don't have to, you're not going to have to be eating 1,300, 1,400 calories a day for the rest of your life. You're going to get to the point where your body can handle a little bit more than that. And so that you're not in starvation mode for the rest of your life. That's not something that people have to fear, but I did not know that.
And that's a really good point. A lot of people don't realize that. A lot of good advice in there. As your body changes and your body composition changes, right, your percentage of lean muscle mass and lean tissue in your body to fat tissue starts changing, right? So your caloric needs start changing as well. And that's a really, really important point for people, is especially if you're dropping, I think you kind of snuck that in there, 100 pounds, right? When you're losing,
yeah, a little over 100.
When you're losing that much weight and you don't even have to wait till it's 100 pounds, but at the 20-point mark, at the 40-point mark, right, at these regular milestones, it's really important to recalculate your daily intake needs.
Yeah.
So that you're keeping your body's engine running at the optimal level for you. Because just like you said, Jen, once you reached kind of a healthier level for you and where you wanted to maintain rather than lose, you had to revamp the intake and your calorie goals for the day, or you go into territory that's not necessarily healthy. So I'm glad you mentioned that.
Right.
Very cool. So you did a ton of research. Sounds like you were learning a lot about the energy structure of your body, the calories in, calories out principle, and how to manage that for yourself. Now, in terms of your outlook and kind of your mental state during this time, what were some of the things that you learned throughout this journey about yourself?
Definitely that I am so much stronger than I ever would have imagined, both mentally and physically. I've struggled with depression and anxiety pretty much from a very young age on, and it really gets into your head that you're not good enough, you're not strong enough to handle things, that you're going to have to depend on other people for happiness your whole life. And doing this really showed me that I'm capable of amazing things. And being heavily overweight, most of the time we're emotional eating, and it's everyone has a different reason for it. But I think that a pretty common ground is we use food to help us cope with things because we don't feel like we're good enough. Mm-hmm. We feel like we're disappointing people all the time for whatever reason. And this really showed me that, I am capable of so much that I never would have dreamed of. And it really helped me. It pushed me to move to New York City, which had been a goal for my entire life. It's pushed me to, my biggest fear in the whole world was taking a group fitness class, and now I'm certified to teach spin, and I go to, the gym almost every single day. I run in races. I'm giving people advice on how to lose weight all the time, and I've never in my life felt more confident.
It's so awesome. It's such an amazing story. Now, Jen, would you have thought, 100 pounds ago that you would be where you are today?
No, not at all. I mean, I think back to, the horror of gym class and, the dreaded timed mile and how I couldn't even walk it in 20 minutes. And, part of me just wants to go back to my high school and, let them, I got to show them what I'm made of. I can probably run a mile in 8 minutes now. So, it's things like that really make you, it gives you the confidence to carry on with your life every day, because as everyone knows, it has its ups and downs, and the downs can sometimes weigh pretty heavy on us. But when you have your health intact, it makes everything else around you less stressful.
Absolutely. It's such an amazing story and where you are today. I mean, huge kudos for sticking to it and being as determined and driven as you were. And now joining the ranks of those that are helping other people with their lifestyle changes as well, and training other people and being in there every day, motivating others. And, you're doing a big part of that today, I think, with the thousands of listeners that you're going to reach through here, as well as those individuals you help every day. You've done something very cool and paying it forward.
Thank you so much.
From what you've done in your experience. You're very welcome. And I can say for myself and for those here at Tips of the Scale that it's very cool that you're helping other people learn from the lessons that you learned along the way. When did you first know or realize that you were making progress, and what did that moment feel like for you?
It was funny. I'll never forget this because I had never experienced what wearing a pair of pants that were too big felt like. And, I was at the job that I had at the time. We were kind of doing like a floor set type of thing where we were re-merchandising some of the things in the store. And one of my coworkers bust out laughing and was just like, your pants are pretty much halfway down your body right now. And I didn't even realize that it didn't. And this was probably about a month after I had started to change what I was eating and walking every day. And I guess it just kind of didn't even occur to me that the changes had started to happen. And at the time, it was a size 24 pant that I was wearing. That was the biggest that I had gotten, and they were getting pretty tight. And about a month into it, I couldn't really even hold them up with a belt. So that was the moment that I realized what I was doing was working, and it definitely helped me, to keep the momentum going.
That has got to be an awesome moment and an awesome feeling to have.
A little embarrassing, but good.
It's a good problem, though, right?
Right.
And so it sounds like this was about a month in after you were starting to make lifestyle changes. So you saw some results at an early clip, and it sounds like that was just what you needed to see to keep going. For our listeners who want to maybe model what you're doing, what does your diet and exercise routine look like now?
Sure. You definitely kind of become a creature of habit. You know what works, and you kind of stick with it. And I think that's the key to maintaining weight loss. So basically, I do have to get up quite early to get my workout in for the day, but I just happen to be a morning exerciser. I have plenty of friends who think I'm crazy for getting up at 4:30 in the morning to do it. I just say whatever time of the day you can get it in and you want to, you stick with it. If I waited till, my 10-hour workday was over, I would not be working out. So that's why I do it in the morning. But I get up around 4:30, get my stuff together. Since I live in New York, we have to always factor in the commuting time. So I get my coffee and water, head to the gym, which is about an hour commute. And I run about 4 or 5 times a week. It depends. Right now I'm in training for quite a few races. So I run, 4 or 5 miles a day. On the weekends, I do a longer run. Right now I'm training for 2 half marathons. So, maybe right 10 or 11 miles on. Thank you. Yeah, it'll be my second and third one. I'm really into the distance running because you don't have to run as fast. So, I do 4 or 5 miles. I try to lift weight a few times a week, which is amazing for actually changing how your body looks and, getting the muscle tone to come through. I personally really like weightlifting classes. I'm a huge fan of Body Pump because it really teaches you, good form, different things to do for different muscle groups.
Right.
And I love yoga, which of course I don't go to it enough, but it's amazing to keep your body nice and stretched out, and it's great for your mind. And then, of course, spin class, which anybody who's maybe afraid of running or they really don't like it, I would recommend spin as an amazing source of cardio because you literally feel like you're in a party.
That's very cool. That's a really great recommendation, too, especially for, like you said, someone who's not ready to maybe hit the treadmill and start running, but you're past walking at this point. Maybe spin class is a fun, relatively low impact thing, but like you said, it's a super social experience too. You're in there with a group of other people who are all sweating, they're all spinning as well, and you're just having a great time losing weight.
Yep, and you, my biggest fear going into a group fitness class about 2.5 years ago was my first one, was me thinking that I was going to be, the most out of shape or, whatever the case may be. And I can tell you right now, sometimes, you might be the most out of shape person, but half of the time there's somebody in there who, it's their first time. They might, especially here in New York because we have such a diverse amount of people, but, there's times there's 85-year-old people in my class and they're working much harder than I am. Yeah. So, don't be afraid to go. The instructors are there to get you to your goals. So don't be afraid. Take that first step. I think group fitness is one of the greatest things to come to the weight loss world ever because they're so motivational. So that for me, I still use those for motivation. And in terms of what I eat every day, like I was saying about being a creature of habit, I can't survive without my morning bowl of oatmeal. It's what I have for breakfast every single day. I eat it with a banana, some chia seeds, sometimes a couple egg whites to up the protein. And what I'm pretty much famous for with all my friends is I have a serious addiction to peanut butter. It's my favorite thing in the world. And, you know, portioned out to a couple of tablespoons a day.
Right.
The healthy fat in it really, really keeps you satisfied. I won't eat an apple or a banana without it because, you know, you pair that with it, and it's an amazing snack. It's great for breakfast. It'll keep you full for a few hours. So that's my breakfast every single day.
Right on. That's a really, really good start to the day. And I had something really similar today, not the fruit and peanut butter. I do that actually in the evenings all the time. But I had the same oatmeal and banana slices and chia seeds this morning. I'd throw a little coconut flakes in there too. But
oh, yum.
Really great starts of the day. Really, really great start.
Definitely.
So looking back now at the success you've had over this fantastic journey that you've been on, looking back to who you were when you started and you know, maybe not believing in yourself at the time, you know, 100 pounds ago, not knowing that it was possible to be where you are today. If you could go back in time to talk to yourself, to talk to the person you were then and say anything, what would you have said?
I would tell her that she's worth it. That she is worth the amount of time and effort that it takes to get healthy and to stay healthy, and you know that it's only going to better your relationships with other people. It's going to make you a better person, and again, just that you're worth it, because I really did not believe that I was worth it.
So important, and I know that there's someone out there right now who is at that place that you were, and they want to believe in themselves as well. Now, what is your advice to that person in terms of practical steps that they could take today?
I would write down exactly what makes you feel the way you're feeling. Is it a person? Is it a situation? Is it your work environment? Is it, you know, is it something traumatic that's happened in your past? And really kind of try to formulate the steps that you need to help that. Maybe you need to, you know, to start going to therapy. Maybe you need to take that step and put some money into joining Weight Watchers, you know, just to get started. It's really just about, you know, maybe today you don't believe that you're worth it. And I'm not going to say that the first day of my journey was the day that I realized, you know, hey, I am worth it. You know, it does take a while, but the saying fake it till you make it is really, if you wait around for the motivation to come, you might be waiting for the rest of your life. And I think that that's what it was for me. You know, I mean, the health factor was extremely scary, but it wasn't like that day I chose to get up and walk 5 miles. It was, you know, it takes some time. You have to just kind of, you almost have to stop thinking about it and just do it. You know, just take a step. Just don't, you know, just replace that milkshake with a glass of almond milk, just, you know, once a day, just doing something like that for yourself and putting that advice together. Eventually, you know, you're going to get to the place of where you realize how much better you're feeling, and it's going to become a part of your life.
Yeah, it's so important to take that first step. That's some fantastic advice in there. Now, Jen, you mentioned that your goals have changed these days and you're training for some really awesome events that you're training for marathon. What else are you working on now? What is your goal now? What are you working on?
Running is, you know, my big passion now. So definitely, you know, improving my half marathon time. I will be running the New York City Marathon next year in 2014. So yeah, I'm really wanted an entire year basically to prep my body for that, because I know that the amount of injuries and stuff that can come from that are quite big. So I'm just trying to strengthen my body, continue working on strengthening my mind. And, you know, my biggest thing is I'm really trying to figure out a career path that can incorporate my experience. I want to help people. I know that that's, you know, my calling in life now is to help people in the situation that I was in and help them get to their goals.
Awesome. Well, you're definitely doing that today. Your story and your advice today are reaching a lot of people and definitely motivating others to get started and make today day one for them as well. So.
Oh yeah, of course.
Now you've mentioned a couple of resources. You said that there was an app you used early on for calorie counting, and you know there were a couple of gyms that you went to. What are some other resources that you would recommend to our listeners to help them as they start on their weight loss journey?
Well, definitely, like I was saying about the blogs, you know, I have a blog. It's called artificiallybalanced.com, and I keep it very real on there. It's, you know, a documentary about the things I eat, my workouts, my life in general. And, like I said, I keep it real with, I still have slip-ups. I still have days where I doubt myself. So I think if you're looking for somebody who's going to stay real and not tell you that every day is butterflies and roses with losing weight, then, you know, my blog is where you can go. But definitely there's quite a few apps out there where you can count your calories and everything. I think that's a huge first step. Maybe you have to use it for the rest of your life. I personally think that I will. And I enjoy it. I actually really do like planning out what I'm going to eat every day. You know, if you maybe don't want to join a gym at first, just get yourself a good pair of walking shoes. Just get in walks every day. That's probably one of the best forms of exercise that anybody can do. I mean, I lost 100 pounds solely just by walking. I didn't begin to run until after that. So
right on. Some great advice there, and definitely would recommend stopping by your blog. You've got some fantastic resources on there. Now, this is one of my favorite questions as we're getting up on our time here, because I like to explore new music, and I also like to get a peek into people's mindsets when they're in the gym and when they're working out and then they're getting their sweat on. So if you would share with us what a current song or artist on your gym playlist is that gets you fired up for your workouts, Jen.
Oh, sure. Okay. Well, music is one of my favorite things in the world, and my biggest song right now, as soon as I hear the first couple of beats, it makes me want to get up and dance, is Blurred Lines by Robin Thicke. Such a great song right now. It's just such a happy, fun. It was just played at one of my best friend's weddings over the weekend, and we had such a blast. I mean, it makes me want to run faster. It makes me, want to get up out of bed and go to the gym. So that's definitely my favorite song right now.
Right on. A lot of energy in that one. I will link that up in the show notes so our listeners can get a chance to go out there and check that out if they haven't heard that before.
Awesome.
Very cool. So Jen, again, thank you so much for your time today. What is one parting piece of advice that you'd like to share with our listeners? And again, how can they get in touch with you?
My biggest piece of advice is going back to the Jillian Michaels quote about transformation being a present activity. Whatever time it is where you live, make the next meal, the next snack you eat today count. Make that a healthier choice. Stop thinking about it and just do it because you're worth it. And tomorrow might not ever come. So, make the changes you need to get your life where you want it to be today. And I am always available. I love to help people. So you can email me, which my email is located on my blog, artificiallybalanced.com. I'm always open to answering questions and giving advice. So shoot me an email, leave me a comment on my blog, and I will be the first step you need in your support system.
Awesome. Jen, thank you so much for being so generous with your time, your expertise, and your experience, and stopping by Tips of the Scale to share this today.
Thank you so much for having me.
And there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us today on Tips of the Scale. Head on over to tipsofthescale.com for recaps of every show, links to all the helpful resources mentioned, and more. Here's to your weight loss success.